This will definitely result in more fish deliveries, and more fish deliveries is more economic gains for the territory.
Tell us what happens when you say China and other people steal your fish. In other words, you're forced to go to areas that are very dangerous.
Well, because of the monuments and overlays of sanctuaries, our fishermen mostly fish on the high seas. And if you look at Global Watch, you will see China, Japan, Korea, and Taiwan all fishing on our very edge of the 200-mile zone. So our fishing, we're in competition with them. And also, you know, their dumping of their fish on U.S. markets lowers the price for our fishermen. And that's another difficult thing that we hope you'll take care of too.
And what about the stealing of your fish?
Well, you're competing with tuna in a very competitive market, right? So they're camped right outside, like you said, they're camped right outside our EEZ.
And what happens?
And they're taking our fish because it's migratory. Tuna is migratory.
Because we can't fish in our zone, the fish goes to whoever.
And they come in. They come in the dead of night. Most
Yes, they do.
They come in, they take the fish.
That's a common, well-documented problem.
Does anybody, I mean, it's so interesting. Even you have to find this one interesting.
Yes.
So by doing this, we're going to give you back your lives.
Yes.
And you've been doing this for thousands of years in this area. And then
Absolutely.
along comes Biden and Obama, and they say you can't do it anymore, right?
This is fish baby fish.
Yeah. So
That's right.
what's the level of and this is a risky question, but what's the level of popularity of Trump and Samoa versus the Democrats?
77%.
For
Poll
Trump?
shows for Trump. Yes,
Wow.
that's right. 77%.
Probably going to 90 tomorrow.
Yes, go up to 100.
100. Well, it's an honor. I'm not doing it for that. I'm doing it because it's just an honor. Here's one of the boats in there. Look how beautiful that is down. They use it for a beautiful cruise that takes 7 days before they can do the first fish. Can you believe it? So now you'll be able to do it like almost immediately, right?
We get much closer, absolutely. So if the fish is there, we can make more trips and employ more people.
Do you know through sonar, radar, everything, do you know where the fish are? I mean, can you see that?
You get educated guesses, so you get all kinds of different reports, plankton and all kinds of stuff, and they can.
It's a beautiful life. You wouldn't choose any other life, right?
It's a very unique life. I love what I do. I really do.
I mean, if you could have a life like some beautiful leisurely life in Washington, D.C., where you get mugged when you go to work, but other than that, you love politics. If you could live in the White House, you'd take exactly
You might take it under consideration.
All right, let's do this, right? That's an honor. You've seen that signature, and I don't use AutoPen. You know, like Biden. Biden uses AutoPen. I think And what is the second one, please?
We have one more also relating to fisheries, sir. This is an executive order on seafood competitiveness. Currently, we have two basic problems here. One is that the American seafood industry is dramatically overregulated. Our fisheries are dramatically overregulated. The other is that we have unfair trade practices from our foreign trading partners relating to the seafood industry. So this executive order is going to attempt to address both of those. The Department of Commerce, other federal departments and agencies are going to work with the fisheries to establish common sense regulatory reforms.
How long will that take?
I think we're expecting to move as quickly as we can. Yes, sir.
You know what I mean, you know exactly what we're talking about already, right? It's crazy, the regulation.
It is.
Secretary Lutnick is going to fast track that, I can assure you.
Howard, please, go ahead.
Sure. So you just heard us, the economic zone around Hawaii and Samoa is huge, and it's exclusively ours. So why wouldn't we have our fishermen fish there? I mean, imagine saying our own fishermen, every country in the world, they all fish the 200 miles off their coast, and we were stopping our own fishermen from going off the coast. It's totally the opposite of common sense. That's why President Trump has changed it. Now let's talk about regulation. If you're not even going to let them fish, Imagine the regulations that have been written to stop our fishermen from just surviving and thriving. We have the greatest coasts in the world with the greatest fishermen in the world, and we need to let them do their great jobs, raise and capture fish, bring them to our tables, have America have the greatest fish in the world, which we have, and then let them export all these other countries, right? They stop us from exporting. That's going to be over with your leadership and your trading policies. We're going to open all of these markets, and we're going to let our fishermen thrive and prosper, and we are going to have lower cost fish, more of it, and the freshest fish in the world. And this is just common sense for the United States of America.
So could I ask, it's so interesting. So you take these massive areas of water, and other countries are allowed to fish in them, right?
No, they sneak in, they poach.
So they're not allowed, but they do it because they don't care.
But they fish in their own zones, sir.
Yeah.
So we're systematically disadvantaging our fishermen by not allowing them to fish in parts of our exclusive economic zone, while other countries have their own exclusive economic zones, and they're fishing the heck out of those.
So they're totally benefiting.
Now that you're allowing the U.S. fishing fleet to fish, they also serve as observers. And when they see poachers, they report them to the authorities. And so they are a big help to the U.S. Coast Guard. And so it's great for our U.S. food security.
Great.
I mean, we should have a trade surplus in fish, and we have a big trade deficit.
It's crazy.
Because of all this. It's just crazy. Nothing
Okay.
familiar.
This is an easy one.
Very easy.
Fish.
Hi, Mom. This is an easy one. This is crazy, huh?
About 80% of the seafood in the U.S. is imported.
Can you imagine that? We import seafood, and we have the greatest coast
So
and
what?
fishing in the world.
Okay, so in Maine, they do something similar. I think it's like 500 miles or something, some crazy thing. And Canada goes and they fish there, other people fish there, Europe fishes there. The Maine lobster. You can't get Maine lobsters because Maine's forced to go for days out to some other area that's not as good. We have to free that up too.
We'll have that on your desk next week, I promise.
The Maine lobster, right? It's incredible.
You did it last
Think of it.
time, and they undid it.
Canada fishes there,
Biden undid
and we're
it.
not allowed to, yeah. I did it last time in Maine, and they undid it. That's why we have to stay president for a long time. Okay. Thank you, everybody. What an honor. It's a great honor. Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Take care
Mr.
of
President.
yourself. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Great job. Thank you so much. Beautiful. You guys look like a real athlete right there. There, look how it
I get a shake too.
Mr. President, breaking news, a short time ago, the Supreme Court agreed to hear oral arguments in the case about ending birthright citizenship. How confident are you that the court will rule in your favor and allow that order to end birthright citizenship to go forward?
Well, you're just telling me that for the first time. I am so happy. I think the case has been so misunderstood. That case, birthright citizenship, is about slavery. If you look at the details of it, the signings of it, everything else, that case is all about slavery. And if you view it from that standpoint, people understand it. But for some reason, lawyers don't talk about it, the news doesn't talk about it. That's not about tourists coming in and touching a piece of sand and all of a sudden they're a citizenship. They're a citizen. That is all about slavery. And even look at the dates on which it was signed. It was right at that era, right after the Civil War. And if you look at it that way, the case is an easy case to win. And I hope the lawyers talk about birthright citizenship and slavery, because that's what it was all about. And it was it was meant to be positive. And they use it now instead, not for slavery, they use it for people that come into our country and they walk in and all of a sudden they become citizens and they pay a lot of money to different cartels and others. It's all about slavery, and if you look at it that way, we should win that case. Okay.
Mr. President, we have a great relationship with the president of El Salvador. Will you ask him to release Abrego Garcia so that you can facilitate his return here to the United States? And do you believe he deserves due process here?
Well, I must tell you, I have to refer again to the lawyers. I'll have to do what they ask me to do. I had heard that there were a lot of things about a certain gentleman, perhaps it was that gentleman, that would make that case be a case that's easily winnable on appeal. So we'll just have to see. I'm going to have to respond to the lawyers.
Mr. President, we're learning that there are now 2 deceased following that shooting at Florida State University. Following and amid that, is there any changes that you want to see to gun legislation? Anything you see broken with gun laws in our
Well,
country?
I'm going to have to, look, I'm a big advocate of the Second Amendment. I have been from the beginning. I protected it. And these things are terrible. But the gun doesn't do the shooting. The people do. It's, you know, a phrase that's used probably too often. I will tell you that it's a shame. I'm just hearing about it now. I just hear about it. I know the area very well. I know the school very well. I know everything about it. It's Florida. And we'll have more to say about it later. I'll have to
What do
see
you
what
mean when
happens.
you say there will be more to say about it?
Only in terms of what happened. As far as legislation is concerned, this has been going on for a long time. I have an obligation to protect the Second Amendment. I ran on the Second Amendment, among many other things, and I will always protect the Second Amendment.
Mr. President, a question about the United Kingdom. Reports that you're going to go and stay with the King in September. Can
Yes.
you confirm that? What are you looking forward to?
Well, I was invited by the King and by the country, great country, they're going to do a second, as you know, a second fest, and that's what it is. It's a fest, and it's beautiful. And it's the first time it's ever happened to one person, and the reason is that we have 2 separate terms. And it's an honor to be, you know, I'm a friend of Charles. I have great respect for King Charles and the family, William. We have just a great respect for the family, and it's a very great honor that, and I think they're setting a date for September.
It's going to be a smaller visit initially and then a bigger state visit to follow after. Is that the plan?
Yeah, they say that it's going to be, I don't know how it can be bigger than the last one. The last one was, as you know, was incredible. But they say it's going to be even more important. So it's a great honor to be so chosen.
President Trump, yesterday you spoke with Japan. Is the Nippon steel deal part of the tariff negotiations? Did you discuss that with them?
It could be, but I doubt it. I mean, I think we're going to view it separately. We want U.S. steel to remain in the hands of the United States and people from the United States. And great respect for Japan, but we don't want a foreign country buying U.S. steel. U.S. Steel was one of our great companies of the world. When you go back 80 years, and it was the biggest, strongest, most powerful company in the world, and we're going to make it very strong and powerful again without Nippon. But if Nippon wants to come in, and I hear they're working on it very hard, I have great respect for Nippon Steel. I know a lot about it, but they can invest and they can do lots of things, partnerships, but we want to have U.S. Steel remain in this country.
So is that a stipulation you would put on these tariff negotiations?
I guess we could talk about it with regard to tariffs, Howard. I mean, it's something that could be a part of it, but tariff negotiations are actually simpler than that. I mean, we're going to set a number and people are going to pay that number, or they're going to decide to go elsewhere if there is such a place. There really is no elsewhere, I think.
Mr. President, in the first term, your Attorney General apologized to Tea Party groups who have been targeted by the IRS under the Obama administration. Why is it okay for the IRS to now be looking at changing the tax status of Harvard because of policy disagreements you had with the university?
So, you know, I had dinner last night with a lot of pastors and ministers and people of faith, and there were like 32 of them, and it was beautiful in the Blue Room, and they said, "Sir, I was targeted by the IRS, and the FBI came in, sir, and I've been going through hell for years." And somebody overheard that statement, and they said, "Oh, that happened to me too." Another one overheard, "Oh, that happened to me too." It was the Biden people, and they had 7 or 8 of them. We're going to be reporting it very soon. I said, this has to be reported. These are ministers, pastors, evangelicals. They were targeted by the Biden administration, which was a disgraceful administration. Well, I was targeted more than anybody in history. I think you probably know that. I hope you admit it, but you might not. But I was targeted more than anybody in history. But it was interesting because one pastor told me, and another one heard it, "Oh, me too, and me too, me too, me too." All of a sudden, they're all, and one of them spent all of his money, everything he had on lawyers, for 3 years, he said. It took place almost immediately after the election. After the election, when Biden came in, unfortunately for the country, sadly for the country. So when you ask me that question, I immediately say, let's switch it around to tell you what happened last night. And not only that, we're also finding that many people just having to do with Trump support have gone through hell. And they've used the IRS for purposes of something that's very illegal for them to have to do.
What are you trying to
It's a
achieve?
very illegal, it's a very, very illegal thing to do, what they did. And I think it's such a shame. That was long what?
If that was wrong, why are you considering changing the tax status of Harvard?
Because I think Harvard's a disgrace. I think what they did was a disgrace. They're obviously anti-Semitic, and all of a sudden they're starting to behave. But when you see what they were saying, what they were doing, when you see the way they took care of events, when you watch that woman, that horrendous president that ruined the image of Harvard, maybe permanently, in Congress, in the halls of Congress, when you take a look at what happened there, it was horrific. And, I've looked at a lot having to do with it. I'm not involved in it. It's being handled by lawyers. I read about it just like you did. But tax exempt status, I mean, it's a privilege. It's really a privilege. And it's been abused by a lot more than Harvard, too, by a lot more than Harvard. So we'll see how that all works out. I don't think they've made a final ruling. I don't believe they've made a final ruling, but it's something that these schools really have to be very, very careful with. Very anti-Semitic when you take a look, whether it's Columbia, Harvard, Princeton. I don't know what's going on, but when you see how badly they've acted, and in other ways also. So we'll be looking at it very strongly.
Mr. President, on that subject, on the tax exempt status subject, what are the other groups you'd like to see that status removed from? Could we expect an executive?
Well, we'll be making some statements, but it's a big deal. And they're so rich and so strong, and then they go so bad. They've earned so much by being a member of this country, a member of this group, this beautiful group of people in this country, and then they go and they abuse their power like that. I think it's very sad.
Are we talking about immigrant rights groups, environmental rights groups?
Could be. I mean, look, environmental. I have a group named CREW. You ever hear of it? I think it's CREW. And they have a guy that heads CREW. It's supposed to be a charitable organization. The only charity they had is going after Donald Trump. So we're looking at that. We're looking at a lot of things. But if you take a look at CREW, what they've done, and I think it was a very big abuse, but we're going to be finding out pretty soon.
Can you explain the disconnect between your conversations with President Xi, when those potentially could happen, and why they haven't happened yet?
Well, you don't know whether or not they've happened.
That's my question.
Yeah, I mean, I've never said whether or not they've happened, but I have a very good relationship with President Xi, and I think it's going to continue. And I would say they have reached out a number of times.
Xi or they?
Well, the same. I view it very similar. It would be top levels of China. And if you knew him, you would know that if they reached out, he knew exactly. He knew everything about it. He runs it very tight, very strong, very smart. And we're talking to China.
So they've reached out in recent days or recent weeks?
Excuse me?
They've reached out since the 145% tariffs?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Do you believe
a lot?
Do you believe
a lot all the time. We're talking.
Have you talked to him directly, to President Xi?
I don't want to say that. Yeah. It's just not appropriate.
But you're speaking.
Sorry, has he called you directly, President Xi, or reached out to try to facilitate a conversation?
Well, you'd think it was pretty obvious that he has, but we will talk about that soon. It's not that important because, honestly, we're going to have a deal. I believe we're going to have a deal with China. And if we don't, we're going to have a deal anyway because we're going to set a certain target, and that's going to be it. Do you have anything to say about that, Howard?
I think our tariff policy around the world has every country in the world coming in and talking to us. It is incredible. We had country after country in yesterday. We are confident that we will work out something with China, and the president knows what he wants to do, and I think he knows it better than anybody else in the world, and we are confident that this is going to work out well, both for the United States of America. I'm sure he'll work it out with China, but the amount of other countries who are working with us is incredible, and I think it's really going to work for the American farmers, for our ranchers, for our fishermen, for our businesses. The scale of companies coming to America just every day, like even this morning we were talking about Whirlpool, and then we were talking about car companies opening. The scale of factories coming to America is mind-boggling, driven by Donald Trump's tariff policy, which has got the world coming and finally respecting the United States of America.
President Trump, you said
And by the way, there's never been anything like it. We have at least $7 trillion of new businesses coming in. If you go back and look at others, I mean, in years they wouldn't do anything like that. So, and this is in a matter of weeks, so it's been pretty amazing.
You said we're talking, so China and the U.S. are talking
Yeah.
on tariffs.
Oh, sure.
Do you believe then that they won't go higher than 125%? We've heard Chinese officials say that. And then, like, what happens if they do go higher? Do we retaliate more?
Well,
than
at a certain point,
125?
I don't want them to go higher, because at a certain point, you make it where people don't buy. So I may not want to go higher, or I may not want to even go up to that level. I may want to go to less, because, you know, you want people to buy. And at a certain point, people aren't going to buy. And it's actually up to 145%, because you have the 20.
You previously said that you would consider reducing tariffs on China to get a tic-tac deal done. Is that still on the table as of now?
Well, we have a deal for TikTok, but it'll be subject to China, so we'll just delay the deal till this thing works out one
If
way or
they
the other.
say-
And I think it's a good deal for China. The TikTok deal is very good. TikTok is good for China, and I think they'd like to see us do a deal, especially the deal that we have pretty much done with some of the best companies in the world.
If they agree to sign the deal, would you take that into consideration?
I think it would be
when
something
talking
we
about
discuss,
reducing
because
tariffs?
it's a natural. If we're making a deal, I guess we'll spend 5 minutes and talk about TikTok. It wouldn't take very long.
Can you give us a sense of how far along these negotiations are with China? Are they in the early stages, or are you inching closer now to actually making a deal on tariffs?
I think that we will make a deal with China. I think we've had some very good talks, but we will have some very good talks remaining. And, you know, I view it, and some people say, oh, rush. I think we have a lot of time. I think we have plenty of time. But we have very, very good, you saw Japan was here yesterday. We had Italy today. We had a great conversation with the Prime Minister. We've had very good talks yesterday with Mexico. Talking with everybody. You know, the problem is there's only so many hours in the day. I think we're going to make a deal with China. We're going to make a deal with everybody. And if we don't make a deal, we'll just set a target, and we'll live with that, and it'll be fine too.
How much time do you think you have?
I would think over the next 3 or 4 weeks, I think maybe the whole thing could be concluded. You have to understand, we're a big, if you think of us as a big, beautiful department store before that business was destroyed by the internet. We're a big, beautiful store, and everybody wants a piece of that store. China wants it, Japan wants it, Mexico, Canada, they live off it, those two. Without us, they wouldn't have a country. And everybody wants a piece. And at a certain point, if we don't make a deal, we'll just set a limit. We'll set a tariff, we'll set some parameters, and we'll say, come in and shop. They may not like that, and they may find it, or the market may find it too high, you know, more likely the market, but the market may find it too high, or the country may find it too high. Then they'll come back and say, well, we think this is too high, and we'll negotiate, or they're going to say something else. They're going to say, well, let's see what happens. But they always have a right not to do it, so they can say, well, we don't want it, so we're not going to shop there. We're not going to shop in the store of America. We have something that nobody else has, and that's the American consumer. And I had the most successful 4-year period in the history of this country, and I think we're going to blow it away this time. But there is a little bit of a transition, and we're going to have that little transition, and it's not much of a transition. You know, if you look right now, we're getting 25% on cars, right? We're getting 25% on steel. We're getting 25% on aluminum. We're going to have some other things that we're going to be adding in the not too distant future because we want them to be made here. The medicines, the drugs, pharmaceuticals are going to be done, and computer chips, et cetera, and because of that, we have the biggest computer companies in the world coming in from Taiwan and other places, and they're building in Arizona and lots of other places. We're number one in AI by far. We're leading China by a lot, by tremendous amounts. We're going to supply electricity at levels never supplied before. They're going to build their own electric. We're going to let them become a utility, essentially. And it's going to be amazing for the country. They're going to build their own electric plants. We have to double up our electricity to remain number one in AI. We're going to have to double up our electricity take our whole country. We're going to have to double up our electricity. Think of that. And probably even triple it up. And we're going to let them build their own electric plants with their plant that they're building for the AI or whatever they're doing. Never been done before. We're going to get them quick approvals. It's going to be very clean, going to be very nice. And we're going to get them very fast approvals. And people are investing in this country like they've never invested before. Thank you very much, everybody.